All right, thank you, Joel. We'll speak to you a little later. Let's begin with the business of the coffee chat, and I'm joined in studio by our colleague, Mr. Mtila. Good morning.
Good, thank you. Always nice to wake up in the morning for the freshest cup of coffee. Thank you.
I get the feeling that you're mocking me, but
Yeah,
it's
I don't know
fine.
how sincere that was.
Hi, Nandi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. All right, guys, let's start with this heavy morning. It's not good news at all. So I've just spoken about a story of yet another child, 7-year-old boy, killed by a person who was just released from jail. That's on the front page of the Cape Argus. The headline, another child slain, parolee arrested.
I remember watching the story last night on the television, and I had to actually switch it off, change channels, in fact, because I couldn't. I was thinking about what the parents were going through on this particular story. 7-year-old Regan, understood to have been, firstly raped and killed by a family member who's been out on parole, you know. And this person was only arrested for 6 years. I think what the president says in terms of having stricter measures it needs to be implemented, but he's the man at the top, essentially. So he needs to affirm those stricter measures, I would think, but good.
Yeah. I don't know if the president, his constant acknowledgement of problems is going to still find a sympathetic ear.
It's all good and well to say that there is a problem. It's all good and well to say that there is a problem. It's obvious. You're stating the obvious. The question is, so what do we do about it?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous to keep saying this is a problem, this needs to be sorted out. Clearly, there's a problem with the system. It's obvious. We do know that. I mean, look at just not so long ago, Goli, we were sitting here talking about Tasney van Wyk, and now we're talking about this. It's I don't even have the words.
And
really.
we can't forget that other monster, Lucas Pasha.
Yeah, exactly.
In Limpopo. 4 children.
I was about to ask, is it the fourth or the 5th child? Essentially, in how many months?
Yeah.
March has barely started.
Yeah.
Something is seriously wrong with society, even.
And what a horrific morning in the Eastern Cape. If we look at the front page of the Star, horror, 25 die in morning bus crash. But for me, the headline, it's the sub-headline that really gets me. Loaded with 94 people, the vehicle careered out of control after a mechanical failure and plunged down a hill.
We heard the Minister of Transport saying that he wants answers and in fact has a team in the Eastern Cape requiring those answers. But to a person who's familiar, I'm quite familiar with those roads in the Transkei, and I can tell you they're quite mountainy. I can only imagine the horror that those people were going through inside that bus as it rolled down.
What were the weather conditions? Do we know?
I'm not quite sure, but yesterday I understand it was a bit rain. I'm not sure in the Eastern Cape how it might have been there. But judging from the pictures, it looked like it was a bit sunny. But you can only imagine, though, the horror as that bus was tumbling down over there. You can only imagine. And you hear that the majority of those people were actually pensioners who were on their way to make their monthly shopping, if I could put it that way.
Imagine. And you expecting those people to go back home and with the little money that they would have gotten, try and feed their families. Now they're gone. Nandi, the issue in the main, I think, has to do with that the sub-headline that we read there. The bus had 94 people on board.
So clearly, that's another issue that the Minister of Transport mentioned, that clearly that bus had too many people on it in the first place. And then we've got one survivor talking about the fact that the bus driver had apparently been driving for 3 days, the same route. So the bus driver was also speeding, and this is in the Cape Times. They're talking about the one survivor says they'd been complaining that you're driving too fast, you're driving this bus too fast. And as you say, I'm also familiar with that road. I spent a couple of years over there. There's no barrier between the cliff and what's happening down there. You could fall over at any moment. So the fact that the bus is overloaded, you are speeding, and probably also a little exhausted from driving that route 3 days in a row. There's just so many factors there to unpack. This could have been avoided so easily. It's the basics. Don't overload, don't drive exhausted, don't speed. It's the basics.
Worst of all, I'm told that this is a provincial bus company. So it's not a privately owned bus company.
From the government.
It's government.
Yeah.
So once again, the taxpayer is going to have to possibly foot the bill, starting with the funerals of these 25 people.
Most likely.
I'm assuming. Yeah.
Most likely.
Guys, let's move on to the front page of the Business Day. And it's the headline down below, Aviwe, that we are going to talk about. Ramaphosa and business sector defend Mbowene's public sector wage bill cuts. And you have a very nice picture there of a big Njali from COSATU. What's happening here? You were covering the story yesterday.
I was just saying to Nandi that, in fact, that's my hand holding the microphone.
In the picture.
Oh,
In the picture. But of course, yeah, the president in the Weekly newsletter did come in the defense of the minister. But of course, the unions aren't having any of it. I spoke to Becky Njali, the general secretary of COSATU yesterday, saying that it is quite surprising that they went ahead and tabled this on the budget speech, the finance minister, only having approached the unions just on the eve of the budget speech, saying that, we have these different engagements with government. So it was quite surprising for them to merely spring this upon us just a day before they actually tabled this budget speech. Another thing that they brought up, Becky Njali, saying that, well, we have already an agreement in place, so we don't understand now why you want to step back and basically not go ahead with that original agreement. You do know that this, of course, could lead to a lot of unrest. A lot of people could take to the streets
exactly
if the unions don't have their way.
And that is going to lead us to talk about the possible instability in the Ramaphosa administration going forward. Nandi, the one issue I want to pick on regarding this issue, someone, in fact it was the COSATU's first deputy president, Mike Shingange, who was speaking on radio yesterday, and he said something that struck me, that if it is government that is going to renege on an agreement that was signed by all sides, what kind of precedent is it setting for the private sector, who will possibly abuse people
They're
at will?
probably going to follow suit, and then we'll have even bigger problems to deal with coming from the private sector, because leading by example is what it is.
Yeah.
So they're going to see it being done and say, okay, so let's also go wild.
There we go.
Yeah, it can spiral very easily.
Yeah. See, the president has trouble in his hands. So, Aviwe, the way forward, the unions are not saying anything yet about mass action, are they?
Not as yet. In fact, COSATU was saying that they're waiting for this to be properly tabled to them. Yeah. We understand now it's going to go to the bargaining council. Of course, in NEDLAC it wasn't discussed, saying that the appropriate platform to discuss this would be at the bargaining council. But if you read between the lines, it seems like neither parties, both government and the unions at this stage, are willing to back down from the statements that we've seen from them. Judging by Deputy Finance Minister David Masondo's interview also at ENCA.
Guys, it's a tense situation. Can I just bring something up on you? Today, we expect the release of the GDP numbers, and there's speculation that it's a big might, be a negative growth. That will then mean that we're in a technical recession, if indeed it is a negative growth in the fourth quarter of 2019.
Most likely, those in the know who are basically saying that the economy in the last quarter of last year has shrunk, which means that that is two consecutive quarters that we've seen negative growth, and that, of course, will be a recession. On top of that, just later on in the month, 27th of March, we're expecting Moody's to make pronouncement on the prospects for the country, and that also is not looking too good, facing a possible downgrade to junk there as well. So our economic prospects...
not so good. A little bleak.
Nandi, sports pages?
All right, so we spoke a little bit about the Proteas women yesterday. They're playing. They are through to the semi-finals, as we all know by now, and we celebrated, and we're happy about that. They still have a pool game to play, though. So they did qualify for the semi-finals early. So today is the pool game against West Indies, and I spoke to the coach Hilton Moring actually yesterday via Skype from Sydney, Australia, and he was talking about how although it's not necessarily a must-win match, I mean, we know already qualified for the semi-finals, we can kind of take it easy. They're using it to iron out the finer details. He's not 100% happy with the way the team's performing, so they're going to use this match against the West Indies that starts at 10 a.m. this morning, South African time. They're going to use it to make sure that they are 100% ready for the semis. They don't know yet who they're playing in the semis. We'll know after this match, and hopefully we'll win it. Then it's 4 in a row, 4 victories in a row. That would be really impressive.
That's positive.
So all the best to our Proteas.
On the back of the blitz at Bokke.
Exactly. Yeah, so another one would be great. Another one would be great.
All right. Thank you, guys. Mr. Mtila, I suspect you're going to be out there again. Nandi, you and I are together here.